So mercifully, way back in 2022, Warner Brothers made the executive decision to cancel the Fantastic Beasts movies after two back-to-back stinkers in The Crimes of Grindelwald and The Secrets of Dumbledore. And personally, the downfall of the Fantastic Beasts series was a shame because I really enjoyed the first movie, though I'll admit that it probably should have been a standalone spin-off. Thinking back on it, the smarter thing to do probably would have been to release Fantastic Beasts to keep the people interested in Wizarding World films, and then announce the plan to do a young Albus Dumbledore series where it climaxes with Dumbledore's final battle against Grindelwald at the end of the first Wizarding World. Not to mention that getting into the habit of releasing one-movie spin-offs could have opened up so many avenues for the Harry Potter franchise. Like, there could have been a story about Isolde Sayre, the one who founded Ilvermorny, or Ewan Blackwood, the Hufflepuff, the only dark Hufflepuff ever. A Wizard anthology series of movies would have probably done numbers, and it would have done so much for the standard access that people have to the lore of Harry Potter. In fact, learning more about Wizarding lore was probably the largest appeal of the first Fantastic Beasts movie for me, because getting to see how magic was regulated outside of the British Ministry of Magic was fascinating, especially because of how different the Magical Congress of the United States operates from what we knew, especially in the Department of Muggle and Wizard Relationships, or I guess No-Majs as they're called in America, which is objectively worse. The whole time, however, I did find myself asking why this particular law was so different, and in my research, I think I found the answer. The whole no-wizard and muggle relationship is a result of a law called Rappaport's Law, and the story behind what made Emily Rappaport, the president of MACUSA at the time, sign it is downright ridiculous. So let's talk about it. From what I've always understood about countries with magical governments established in them, America has always had the worst struggle when it came to Wizard and No-Maj relationships. Mostly because of the Salem witch trials, which were pretty infamous. And actually, this is kind of funny because in the original Harry Potter series, witch hunts are mentioned and dismissed pretty quickly because in Bathilda Bagshot's A History of Magic, it's noted that witches typically just used a flame freezing spell on what was supposed to be their pyre, and then they just screamed for theater before evaporating or apparating away. But apparently, the Salem witch trials were more brutal due to the nature of the execution, which I'm not sure I can say without getting hit by some kind of YouTube censorship, and I really need this channel to grow. Like and subscribe, by the way, if you haven't already. What I probably can mention is that the method of execution used in America involved a rope, and I'll just leave it at that. But while the witch trials invoked the international statute of secrecy in the magical community, it did not punish interactions between muggles and wizards quite the way that MACUSA's own law did. And the story of how MACUSA's harsh law came into place is the one I imagine is the story behind a lot of stupid laws involving a very powerful parent and an extremely dull child. Aristotle Twelvetrees, what a name, was the keeper of the treasure and dragons during the presidency of Rappaport and was an extremely hard-working and brilliant man. His daughter Dorcas, however, relied more on her pretty face to get ahead rather than to actually deal with the grind of everyday life. In fact, Dorcas's academic record at Ilvermorny was so poor that she was not able to find work in the Wizarding world and instead had to go back to living at home with her father as he climbed the rank of government while she worked on a clothing brand. She was literally trying to be this world's first wizarding influencer. But for the most part, this was fine. Dorcas got to live the way she wanted to, and Aristotle was able to ensure that she was cared for and found a lot of joy in his work. But everything is going to change when, during a local picnic hosted by MACUSA, Dorcas became infatuated by a man named Bartholomew Barebone. Tough name. Unfortunately, apparently, Bartholomew had a vicious face card, and as Dorcas became more enamored with him, she started to tell him everything, including the locations of Ilvermorny and MACUSA, and she even went as far as showing him her wand. And Bartholomew, doing what he was always going to do, used the information he gathered from Dorcas to go to the press and organize a militia to kill all the witches and wizards in the vicinity. So Barebone goes to one of these government buildings, and while he was watching the building, which he believed to be the MACUSA headquarters, hoping to begin his violent spree, he accidentally shoots what he believes were a group of MACUSA wizards that actually turned out to just be No-Majs. Thankfully, nobody was killed as a result of it, and Barebones was arrested by Muggle authorities, ending the immediate threat to the Wizarding world, as all the people that he had inspired to take action soon turned against him and they just considered him insane and that they had been duped. But while the threat of exposure was alleviated for now, MACUSA was never going to allow another incident like that to ever happen again, and so President Rappaport was forced to attend the International Confederation of Wizards at a public inquiry and had to admit that she was unsure if they could obliviate everyone who had heard about the wizarding community from Barebone's efforts. As a result of all of this, Dorcas becomes public enemy number 1 in the wizarding community, and the people want her to spend the rest of her life in jail, but Dorcas only spends 1 year, likely thanks to her father's position. Good old nepotism, always gets you out of trouble. Though still, she was forced to live out the rest of her life in complete seclusion under this weird house arrest, because she was untrusted to be able to roam free by anyone in the wizarding community. Her actions, of course, are what brought upon Rappaport's law, the very law that made it punishable by death for magical people to fraternize with the no-magic community. While we know from the Harry Potter books that the Ministry of Magic keeps regular communication with the Muggle Ministry, MACUSA acts as a totally independent form of government from the No-Majs government, and in most cases, No-Majs are still regarded as the enemy by many American wizards. Rappaport's law was probably rather destructive to the development of the wizarding community, but it's kind of hard to blame her after how close her people came to the legitimate threat of annihilation. But that's the story about why No-Majs and wizards have no connection in America. And my wondering is, what do you guys think of Rappaport's law and how the events unfolded? Do you think it was too harsh, or do you think it was reasonable? And if you were unfortunately in Emily Rappaport's shoes, what would you have done? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this quick little informative video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Peace.